I never thought I'd be thanking my sister for taking my fiancé, but life has a funny way of working out. When that wedding invitation arrived with both their names in fancy gold letters, I wanted to burn it. Instead, I said yes and found the perfect person to bring with me. At the party, when my sister grabbed the microphone and said she was the one he settled for first, I never expected what happened next. My date stood up, glass in hand, and changed everything. Before I tell you how this whole mess turned into the best thing that ever happened to me, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever felt betrayed by family or found love after a broken heart, this story is for you. Hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, the ending to this story is sweeter than wedding cake. My name is Evelyn Miller, and 6 months ago, I had what anyone would call a perfect life. At 29, I was a top marketing manager at a big company in Seattle, living in a beautiful apartment with my fiancé of 1 year, Daniel Green. We had been together for 5 years before he asked me to marry him, and I still remember every detail of that day. It was sunset at Lake Union. Daniel had set up a private picnic on the shore, with pretty lights strung between poles in the sand. He had made all my favorite foods and brought the same champagne we shared on our first date. When he got down on one knee, the last rays of sunlight hit the diamond ring, making colors dance across his nervous face. "Evelyn," he said, his voice shaking a little, "you make everyday moments special. I want a lifetime of those moments with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears, and we spent the evening planning our future between kisses and champagne. That memory used to be my happy place. Now it felt like watching a movie about strangers. My younger sister Chloe and I had always been close, even though we were always competing. Growing up, she was the pretty one with natural charm, while I was the hard-working one who got things done. We balanced each other out, or so I thought. Our parents, Sarah and Tom, raised us to support each other, though they sometimes accidentally made us compete by comparing us. "Chloe has your artistic talent, Sarah," our father would say, "but Evelyn has my business smarts." I never worried about competition when it came to men. Chloe and I liked completely different types. At least, that's what I believed until I came home early from a business trip to San Francisco, hoping to surprise Daniel. I still had my key to his apartment. We were planning to move in together after the wedding, but we still kept our own places. When I opened the door, the apartment was empty, but Daniel's phone was on the coffee table, buzzing with new messages. I wasn't the type to snoop, but something made me look. The preview messages on the screen made my stomach drop. "Miss you already. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to tell everyone about us." The sender, Chloe Miller. I sat there, phone in hand, for what felt like hours. When Daniel finally came back with coffee and bagels, his face went from shock to guilt in seconds. "You're home early," he said, setting down the breakfast bag with shaking hands. I replied, my voice surprisingly calm despite the earthquake happening inside me. "How long?" "Paige, it's not what you think." "How long?" He fell onto the couch across from me, running his hands through his hair. "3 months. It just happened, Evelyn. We didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't mean to hurt me? You're sleeping with my sister." What followed was a blur of angry words, weak excuses, and painful truths. Daniel claimed he had met Chloe at a bar while I was on a business trip. One drink led to talking, which led to a connection he couldn't explain. The betrayal hurt deeper with each detail. "I was going to tell you," he insisted. "I just didn't know how." "Were you going to tell me before or after our wedding?" I asked, taking the engagement ring off my finger and placing it on the table between us. The family problems started immediately and were very messy. My mother, Sarah, tried to be a peacemaker, which only made things worse. "These things happen, honey," she said during our first family talk about it. "The heart wants what it wants." My father was furious, refusing to speak to Daniel and barely looking at Chloe. "No daughter of mine would do this to her sister," he shouted during a very tense family dinner where Chloe had announced they were officially dating. "We can't help who we fall in love with," Chloe had said, reaching for Daniel's hand across the table. "I hope someday you'll understand and forgive us, Evelyn." I stopped going to family gatherings after that. The betrayal was too fresh, the wound too deep. I focused on work and avoided calls from both my sister and my ex-fiancé. Friends tried to help, but most didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone whose sister stole their future husband? The engagement ring sat in my dresser drawer, a painful reminder of broken promises. Some days I thought about selling it, other days about throwing it into Lake Union where it all began. But mostly, I tried not to think about it at all. The 6 months after the breakup were a slow process of healing and getting back on my feet. I moved to a new apartment, throwing myself into decorating as a way to cope. I accepted a promotion at work that meant longer hours but was a welcome distraction. My boss, Mr. Thompson, had been surprisingly understanding, offering flexibility when I needed it. "Heartbreak is the worst for performance," he'd said. "Take the time you need, but no discorner office is waiting when you're ready." I was thankful for the support, but the person who truly saved me during this time was my best friend, Ava Davis. She showed up at my door the day after the breakup with ice cream, wine, and a fierce loyalty that got me through the darkest moments. "We are going to burn his clothes, change your hair, and book a trip somewhere with handsome men and strong drinks," she announced, already pulling items from my closet that reminded her of Daniel. I didn't burn his clothes, I donated them instead, or book that trip. Work was too busy. But I did start seeing Dr. Emily Carter, a therapist Ava had suggested. Our weekly sessions became a steady point in my chaotic emotional state. Betrayal from two people you trust completely creates a unique kind of hurt, Dr. Carter explained. Give yourself permission to feel everything without judgment. I was trying to date again, accepting occasional setups from well-meaning friends, but trust didn't come easily anymore. I'd find myself looking closely at text messages for hidden meanings or questioning innocent comments. One promising connection ended when I accused him of being interested in a waitress who was simply doing her job. I wasn't ready, but I was trying. Then came the invitation. It arrived on a Tuesday morning. A cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering addressed to Miss Evelyn Miller and guest. The paper was thick and expensive with a subtle flower pattern around the edges. Inside, the invitation was just as fancy. Together with their families, Chloe Miller and Daniel Green request the honor of your presence as they unite in marriage. The wedding was just 5 weeks away. 5 weeks! They had been together for what, 9 months? And tucked inside was a handwritten note on Chloe's special caper. "Evelyn, I hope you can be happy for us. It would mean everything to have my sister standing with me on the most important day of my life. Love always, Chloe." I called Ava immediately, barely able to speak through my sobs. "They invited me to their wedding," I managed to say when she answered. "Who invited you to their wedding?" Ava asked, confusion clear in her voice. "Chloe and Daniel." "What? Let me come over. Don't do anything until I get there." Ava arrived 30 minutes later, took one look at the invitation, now crumbled on my counter, and poured us both a generous glass of wine despite it being barely noon. "This is either the most clueless thing I've ever seen or a deliberate power move," she said, examining the elegant invitation. "Either way, you're not going." But as the day went on, and in the weeks that followed, the pressure grew. My mother called daily, her voice increasingly desperate. "Please, Evelyn, this family problem is breaking my heart. Your being there would show such maturity and forgiveness." Even my father, who had been my strongest supporter, seemed to be softening. "I don't like it any more than you do," he told me during a private lunch. "But she's still your sister and my daughter. I have to walk her down the aisle." He squeezed my hand across the table. "You don't have to come if it's too painful. I'll support whatever you decide." But my cousin Lily's call was the turning point. Always the family gossip, she couldn't wait to tell me what everyone was saying. The whole family is talking about whether you'll show up, she said, with barely hidden excitement. And Aunt Carol is convinced you'll make a scene, but Uncle Phil bet $50 you won't even attend because you're still heartbroken. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of thinking I was still devastated. I wouldn't be the bitter ex who couldn't face seeing her former fiancé happy. I'd go to the wedding, head held high, showing everyone that Evelyn Miller had moved on. The problem was, I hadn't. Not really. Ava was horrified when I told her my decision to go to the wedding. "Have you lost your mind?" she demanded, pacing around my living room. "This is hurting yourself, not maturity." "I need to do this," I insisted. "I need to show them all that I'm fine." Ava stopped pacing and looked at me. "Then we need to make sure you're better than fine. You need to be absolutely amazing." What followed was what Ava called Operation Glow Up. She created a full plan for the weeks leading up to the wedding, with a calendar and progress tracking. "If you're determined to walk into the lion's den, you're going to do it looking like a goddess and with the hottest man we can find," she declared. First on the list was shopping for the perfect dress. We went to every fancy shop in Seattle's downtown, looking for something that was both elegant and sexy. We finally found it at a small designer store, a crimson silk gown with a subtle side slit and an open back. It was sophisticated, but definitely eye-catching. "Red is perfect," Ava said as I twirled in front of the mirror. "It says, 'I'm not sad,' and look what you're missing." At the same time, next came the physical change. Ava booked us for weekly spa treatments, including facials, massages, and everything. I started waking up at 5 a.m. for sessions with a personal trainer Ava knew. By week 3, I was already seeing definition in my arms and feeling stronger both physically and mentally. A trip to an exclusive salon resulted in subtle highlights and a fresh cut that framed my face perfectly. The stylist, Marco, sighed over my previously uncared-for hair. "Breakups are terrible for hair, darling," he said as he worked his magic. "But men come and go. Great hair is forever." As I watched my outer change in the mirror each day, I couldn't help questioning the process. Was I really healing or just creating a fancy mask to hide my pain? Was getting revenge through how I looked the answer, or was I focusing on unimportant things? Dr. Carter helped me think through these feelings during our sessions. "There's nothing wrong with wanting to look your best," she assured me. "The problem would be if you believed your worth was determined by his reaction to your appearance. This event is upsetting for you. Having some armor is reasonable." The final part of the plan was finding the perfect date. Ava suggested everyone from her cousin's roommate to a model she'd worked with on a marketing campaign. I said no to all of them. If I was going to bring someone, it needed to be real. I didn't want to hire someone or beg a friend to pretend. That felt too desperate. And then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I met Noah Thompson. It happened at a charity auction for Seattle Children's Hospital. My company had bought a table, and as the marketing manager, I was expected to attend. I was making small talk with a client when I literally bumped into him, spilling champagne down the front of his clearly expensive suit. "I'm so sorry," I exclaimed, embarrassed, grabbing napkins to dab at the stain. "Don't worry about it," he said with a laugh. "This suit needed to loosen up anyway. It's been stiff all evening." Noah Thompson was tall, with dark hair and the kind of smile that reached his eyes. He introduced himself as an architect who had recently returned to Seattle after several years working in other countries. "I've been away so long, I feel like a tourist in my own city," he admitted, as we continued talking long after the champagne incident was forgotten. There was something immediately comfortable about our conversation. No awkward silences or forced topics. We found out we knew some of the same people. He knew my college roommate's brother and shared favorite spots around the city. We both loved the same small bookstore in Capitol Hill. When the event ended, Noah asked for my number. "I'd love to continue this conversation over coffee sometime." Coffee turned into dinner the next evening, which turned into a Saturday spent exploring an architecture exhibit at the art museum. By our third date, I felt myself genuinely smiling again, not the fake version I'd been wearing for months. It was during that third date, over dessert at a small Italian restaurant, that I finally told him about the wedding situation. My sister's marrying my ex-fiancé in 2 weeks, I said, waiting for the awkwardness to appear. Instead, Noah looked thoughtful. That must be incredibly difficult. Are you planning to attend? I nodded, explaining my complicated reasons for going. When I finished, Noah reached across the table and took my hand. I have a proposal, he said. Take me as your date. I stared at him. We barely know each other. Why would you want to put yourself through my family drama? First, I'm actually enjoying getting to know you, so this gives me an excuse for another date. Second, I'm excellent at charming parents and making exes jealous. It's a skill I rarely get to use these days. His playful confidence made me laugh, and before I knew it, we were planning our strategy over tiramisu and espresso. Noah suggested we coordinate our outfits. Couples who color coordinate look established, and practice basic details about each other's lives. Your favorite book is Pride and Prejudice, mine is The Great Gatsby. As our plotting grew more detailed, I felt a little guilty. Was I using Noah? Despite our real connection, I was bringing him to this wedding for a specific purpose.
When I told him this concern, Noah's response surprised me. Evelyn, I'm going into this with open eyes. Yes, there's an element of acting to it, but that doesn't mean what's growing between us isn't real. Sometimes the best relationships start under strange circumstances. As the wedding got closer, I found myself looking forward to my time with Noah more than I was dreading the ceremony itself. Something real was forming beneath our strategic alliance. Something that made me wonder if Chloe and Daniel's betrayal might accidentally lead to something wonderful. The wedding weekend arrived with painful speed. Chloe and Daniel had planned a full 3 days of events at a fancy resort outside Seattle. Welcome drinks on Friday, the rehearsal dinner Saturday, and a family breakfast Sunday morning before the afternoon ceremony. You don't have to tend everything, Ava reminded me during our final pep talk. The main event is enough torture. But Noah and I decided to go all in. If we're doing this, let's commit fully, he said. Besides, the more comfortable we appear together beforehand, the more convincing our relationship will seem at the wedding. Friday evening's welcome drinks were at the resort's rooftop bar. Noah and I arrived fashionably late, giving me time to take deep breaths in the elevator and remember Dr. Carter's advice. Focus on your breathing when anxiety rises. 5 counts in, 7 counts out. The moment we stepped onto the rooftop, I spotted them. Chloe, in a white cocktail dress, laughing at something Daniel was saying to a group of guests. They looked like the perfect couple from a distance. It wasn't until Noah squeezed my hand that I realized I'd been digging my nails into his palm. "You've got this," he whispered. "Let's get a drink first." We made it halfway to the bar before my mother spotted us and rushed over, arms outstretched. "Evelyn, you came!" Sarah exclaimed, hugging me with unusual excitement. She pulled back to examine Noah with clear curiosity. "And who is this?" "Mom, this is Noah Thompson." "Noah, my mother, Sarah." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Miller," Noah said, turning on the charm I'd come to recognize during our time together. "Evelyn speaks so highly of you." My mother practically glowed under his attention. "Please call me Sarah." "How did you two meet? Evelyn hasn't mentioned anyone new." As Noah began telling our champagne spill story, making it sound far more charming than my clumsy reality, I caught sight of Daniel watching us from across the terrace. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, leaning down to whisper something to Chloe. She turned immediately, her expression changing from surprise to judgment to forced cheerfulness. As she headed our way, "Evelyn, you made it!" she exclaimed, air kissing near my cheek. "And with a friend. How lovely." "Noah Thompson," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I'm Evelyn's boyfriend. Congratulations on your engagement." "Boyfriend?" We hadn't discussed using that label, but it felt right in the moment. Chloe smiled tighten almost unnoticeably. "Thank you," she said, her eyes darting between us. "Daniel, come meet Evelyn's boyfriend." Daniel approached slowly, his usual confidence much less noticeable. "Good to see you, Evelyn," he said awkwardly. "It means a lot that you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied with a sweetness that made my mother raise her eyebrows. Noah extended his hand. Noah Thompson, I've heard so much about you. The men shook hands, Daniel clearly judging Noah as they did. I could practically see the comparison happening behind his eyes. And from his expression, Noah was winning. The rest of the evening was a careful dance of polite conversation and smart moves. Noah charmed everyone he met, from my elderly great-aunt Martha to Daniel's college roommates. I caught Daniel watching us several times, especially when Noah made me laugh or placed his hand casually on the small of my back. By the time we returned to our separate hotel rooms, we weren't actually at that stage yet, despite the boyfriend label, I was emotionally tired, but surprisingly successful. That went better than expected, I told Noah as he walked me to my door. You were amazing, he said, but tomorrow will be more intense. The rehearsal dinner is smaller, more private. He was right. Saturday's rehearsal dinner brought the main wedding party together in the resort's private dining room. I wasn't in the wedding party, of course, but as immediate family, I was expected to attend. The seating arrangement placed Noah and I directly across from Daniel's parents, who had always loved me. Evelyn, darling, Daniel's mother Susan hugged me warmly. You look wonderful. We've missed you so much. Her husband Robert nodded in agreement. The house isn't the same without your Sunday visits. He glanced toward Chloe, who was busy telling the catering staff what to do. Some things change too quickly for an old man like me.
Their clear preference for me over Chloe created a noticeable tension that only increased when the speeches began. Traditional rehearsal dinner toasts became an exercise in careful avoiding, with no one quite knowing how to talk about the couple's beginning without mentioning the uncomfortable truth. Daniel's best man, Alex, eventually saved the situation with humor. I've known Daniel since college, and he's always been the most decisive guy I know, except when it comes to the restaurant menu, or apparently the Miller family. The awkward laughter that followed eased some of the tension, but I noticed Daniel's forced smile and the way Chloe's hand tightened around her champagne glass. Something wasn't quite right between them. This became even more clear during Sunday morning's family breakfast. Noah and I were sharing a table with my father when Daniel's parents joined us, clearly choosing our table over the one where Chloe sat with her bridesmaids. "How's work, Evelyn?" Robert asked. "Still doing great in marketing?" As I updated them on my recent promotion, I caught my father watching me with a mix of pride and sadness. When the others went to the buffet for seconds, he leaned in close. "I want you to know how proud I am of you, Pumpkin," he said, using his childhood nickname for me. "The way you're handling all this, it shows remarkable strength." "Thanks, Dad," I said, unexpectedly touched. "It means a lot." "I'm still disappointed in Chloe," he admitted quietly. "I'm trying to support her because she's my daughter, but what she did, it's not how we raised you girls." "I know, Dad." His eyes moved to Noah, who was chatting happily with my cousin across the room. "This new fellow seems like a good man. Much better fit for you than Daniel ever was, if you ask me." Before I could respond, Daniel approached our table, looking unusually nervous. "Mr. Miller," he said, nodding to my father, who returned the greeting with minimal warmth. "Evelyn, could I talk to you for a minute, privately?" My father tensed, but I placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "It's fine, Dad." I followed Daniel to a quiet corner of the terrace, keeping a careful distance between us. "What is it, Daniel?" He ran a hand through his hair, a familiar, nervous gesture. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay with all of this. I mean, I'm fine," I said, more coldly than I intended. "Noah and I are having a lovely weekend." "Yeah, he seems great." Daniel's tone suggested the opposite. "How long have you been together? Does it matter?" "No, I guess not." He looked toward Chloe, who was watching us closely from across the room. "I just want you to be happy, Evelyn. You deserve that." Something in his voice made me really look at him for the first time. The man I'd planned to marry looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and tension in his shoulders that I recognized from our most stressful times together. "Are you happy, Daniel?" I found myself asking. The question clearly surprised him. "Of course," he said too quickly. "Why wouldn't I be? It's my wedding day." Before I could respond, Chloe appeared at his side, slipping her arm through his with a too tight grip. "What are you two talking about so seriously?" she asked with forced lightness. "Just catching up," Daniel said. "I should get ready. Big day." As he walked away, Chloe stayed, her smile fading once he was out of earshot. "He's mine now," she said quietly. "Whatever you said to him just now won't change that." I was surprised by the hostility in her voice. "I don't want him back, Chloe." "Sure you don't," she scoffed, eyeing Noah across the room. "Your new boyfriend is quite the upgrade. Convenient timing." "This isn't a competition," I said, though we both knew that in Chloe's mind, everything had always been exactly that. She laughed without humor. "It's always been a competition, Evelyn. You just never noticed because you were always winning. Well, not anymore." As she walked away, I felt a wave of sadness replace the anger I'd been holding on to for months. What had happened to us? We used to build blanket forts together and protect each other from playground bullies. Now we were exchanging veiled insults at her wedding to my ex-fiancé. That night, unable to sleep, I texted Noah. "I'm not sure I can go through with this tomorrow." He responded immediately. "Want to talk? I'm still awake." 20 minutes later, we were sitting in the empty hotel bar, having drinks and discussing my doubts. "I thought this would be satisfying," I confessed, "showing up, looking great with you on my arm, making them jealous. But it just feels sad." Noah thought about this, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "Can I tell you something? Something I haven't shared before?" I nodded, curious at his serious tone. 3 years ago, I was engaged too. He said her name was Olivia. 2 months before our wedding, I found out she'd been seeing her coworker for almost a year. "Noah, I'm so sorry." He shrugged, but I could see the old pain in his eyes. I declined the wedding invitation. We both laughed at that, breaking the tension. "The point is," he continued, "I understand betrayal, and I understand wanting to show them you're better off. But at some point, you have to decide if you're there for them or for yourself." "What do you mean? Are you attending this wedding to prove something to them or to prove something to yourself?" I thought about his question carefully. Maybe both. At first, it was about showing them I wasn't destroyed. But now, I think I need to be there for me, to close this chapter properly. Noah reached across the table and took my hand. "Then that's why we'll go. Not for revenge, but for closure." When he walked me back to my room this time, our goodnight was a kiss that had nothing to do with wedding strategies and everything to do with the real connection that had been building between us. "For the record," Noah said as he pulled away, "I'd be here even if there was no wedding. I'm in this for you, Evelyn Miller." As I fell asleep that night, I realized my reason had changed. Tomorrow wasn't about getting back at Chloe and Daniel. It was about saying goodbye to what had been and embracing whatever came next. The morning of the wedding started with perfect weather, as if the universe were blessing the union I'd spent months hating. Ava arrived at my hotel room early, armed with makeup and moral support. "Final chance to back out," she said, laying out her professional makeup on the bathroom counter. "We could be on a plane to anywhere by noon." "I'm staying," I said, with more confidence than I'd felt the entire weekend, "but thank you for the escape option." Ava studied my face. "Something's different. You seem lighter." "I had a good talk with Noah last night about closure and moving forward." "Uh-huh," she said, an annoying smile playing on her lips as she began working on my makeup. "Just a good talk, hmm?" "Well, maybe a good talk and a good kiss," I admitted, feeling a blush rise to my cheeks. "I knew it," Ava squealed. Excited. I could tell from the moment I met him at the dress fitting that this was more than a revenge date. He couldn't take his eyes off you. As Ava worked her magic, transforming my appearance with expert contouring and subtle highlights, I found myself genuinely excited about the day ahead. Not because of the wedding, but because of who would be by my side. When Noah knocked on my door 2 hours later, his reaction made all the effort worth it. He actually took a step back, his eyes widening as he took in the full effect of the red dress, professional makeup, and elegant updo Ava had created. "You are absolutely stunning," he said, his voice hushed with genuine awe. He looked pretty impressive himself in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a red pocket square that matched my dress exactly. The coordinated look was subtle but effective, clearly marking us as a couple. "Ready for this?" he asked, offering his arm. "As I'll ever be." The ceremony was being held in the resort's garden, with white chairs arranged in neat rows facing a fancy floral arch. Noah and I were led to seats in the third row on the bride's side, much more noticeable than I'd expected. I could feel eyes on us as we took our places, whispers following us. The garden filled quickly with guests in their spring finest. Daniel's groomsmen took their places, followed by Daniel himself, looking handsome but tense in his tuxedo. The string quartet began playing, signaling the start of the procession. Bridesmaids in pale pink floated down the aisle one by one. Then the music changed to the traditional wedding march, and everyone stood, turning to watch Chloe appear on our father's arm. I had to admit, she looked beautiful in her fitted lace gown, her blonde hair swept up in a fancy style decorated with tiny flowers. Our father's expression was a complicated mix of pride and something else I couldn't quite name as he walked her slowly toward Daniel. The ceremony itself was short but traditional. I noticed Daniel stumble slightly over his vows, while Chloe delivered hers with practiced perfection, her voice carrying clearly across the garden. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, I felt Noah's hand tighten around mine, and several guests glanced nervously in my direction. But the moment passed without incident, and soon they were pronounced husband and wife. "You okay?" Noah whispered as we watched them walk back down the aisle together. "Surprisingly, yes," I replied, realizing it was true. The knot of anger and hurt that had lived in my chest for months had loosened. Not completely gone, but significantly smaller. The cocktail hour that followed on the terrace was my first real test. Without the structure of the ceremony, guests were free to approach and comment. My mother's friends came first, their curiosity thinly hidden as concern. "Such a brave face you're putting on, dear," said my mother's best friend, Carol, patting my arm in a condescending way. "Not brave at all," I replied smoothly, "just genuinely happy to be here with Noah." Noah was excellent at turning away awkward comments with charm, moving conversations away from the past and toward neutral topics. His protective presence beside me made everything more bearable. The most surprising interaction came from Daniel's best friend, Alex, who found me while Noah was getting us fresh drinks. "I owe you an apology, Evelyn," he said, looking truly sorry. "I knew about them before you did. I should have told you." "It wasn't your responsibility," I said, though his admission stung. "Still, you deserved better from all of us." He glanced toward Daniel, who was posing for photos with Chloe. For what it's worth, I'm not convinced he made the right choice. Before I could respond, I overheard Chloe's bridesmaids nearby, their voices carrying just enough for me to catch snippets. "Can you believe she actually showed up with that guy? Has to be hired. No way she found someone that gorgeous so quickly. Daniel keeps watching them. Chloe's going to lose it if he doesn't stop." Noah returned, handing me fresh champagne and subtly positioning himself between me and the gossiping bridesmaids. "Ready to head in for dinner? They're opening the ballroom." The reception space was undeniably beautiful, with crystal chandeliers, fancy floral centerpieces, and twinkling fairy lights draped across the ceiling. I recognized many elements from my own wedding Pinterest boards, ideas I'd shared with both Daniel and Chloe during happier times. Noah and I were seated at a table with my parents, my father's sister and her husband, and surprisingly, Daniel's parents. A strategic seating arrangement that placed me with my supporters rather than among Chloe's friends. The bride and groom made their entrance to excited applause, taking their place at the elevated head table. Throughout dinner, I noticed Daniel's gaze repeatedly drifting to our table, though he quickly looked away whenever our eyes met.
After the main course, the traditional toasts began. The best man and maid of honor both gave appropriate, heartfelt speeches, carefully avoiding the relationship's complicated beginning. I was just starting to relax when Chloe suddenly stood and took the microphone from the maid of honor. "I want to say something too," she announced, her voice slightly affected by the champagne she'd been drinking steadily all evening. "Everyone here knows how much I love Daniel." An expectant hush fell over the room. This wasn't on the program. "What some of you might not know is the journey that brought us here," Chloe continued, her gaze finding me in the crowd. "Sometimes the path to true love isn't straightforward. Sometimes you have to go through obstacles to find your perfect match." My stomach tightened as her meaning became clear. Noah's hand found mine under the table. "Daniel and I were meant to be together," she said, raising her glass. "Sometimes it takes a man a while to realize who he really belongs with. She might be the one he settled for first, but I'm the one he chose forever." Uncomfortable whispers rippled through the room as guests who knew the situation exchanged glances. Others, unaware of the background, simply looked confused. My mother gasped softly beside me, while my father's face darkened with anger. Before I could process what was happening, Noah was on his feet, champagne glass in hand. The room fell silent as he straightened his tie and cleared his throat. "May I?" he asked, directing his question to Daniel rather than Chloe. After a moment of hesitation, Daniel nodded, looking both curious and worried. "For those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Noah Thompson, Evelyn's date this evening," he began, his voice warm and confident. "First, I'd like to congratulate the bride and groom. Marriage is a deep commitment, one that requires courage and faith." He paused, his smile never fading. "I've only known Evelyn for a short time, but in that time, I've discovered a woman of extraordinary grace and strength. When she told me about this wedding, I was impressed by her decision to attend to support her sister despite their complicated history." The room was completely silent now, all eyes on Noah. "What Chloe said is true in one respect," he continued. "Sometimes we don't recognize what's truly valuable until it's gone. But I have to disagree with her conclusion." He turned to look at me, his expression softening. "From where I'm standing, I'm not Evelyn's consolation prize. I'm her upgrade." Someone at the back of the room whistled, breaking the tension slightly. Noah wasn't finished. "For those who don't know me, I recently returned to Seattle after designing the Harbor Tower in London and the Sky Museum in Tokyo. My work was just featured in Architectural Digest last month, which I'm told some of you subscribe to." Recognition dawned on many faces. Noah Thompson wasn't just any architect. He was one of the rising stars in international architecture, something I hadn't fully understood until this moment. "But more importantly," he continued, "I'm the man lucky enough to be falling in love with Evelyn Miller. So let's raise a glass to new beginnings and to recognizing true value when we see it." The room erupted in applause as Noah sat down, many guests now looking at me with new interest and respect. Daniel appeared stunned, while Chloe's face had turned an angry red. "Was that too much?" Noah whispered to me as the band started playing, drawing attention away from our table. "It was perfect," I replied, feeling truly touched by his words. "Did you mean it? About falling in love?" His eyes met mine, serious despite his smile. "Every word." The reception continued, with a first dance and cake cutting, but the atmosphere had changed noticeably after Noah's speech. Guests kept approaching our table, many suddenly remembering they'd seen Noah's work or read the Architectural Digest feature. Several of Daniel's business partners seemed particularly eager to exchange cards with him. "You're quite the celebrity," I teased as another admirer walked away. "Hardly," Noah replied with a humble smile. "But architecture is a small world, and Seattle is where I started. People remember." What they also remembered, apparently, was the story of how Daniel had left me for Chloe. With Noah's speech highlighting my grace in attending, the story was shifting. I overheard new versions of the story circulating, with increasing sympathy toward me and raised eyebrows toward the newlyweds. Daniel seemed to notice the shift, too.
His earlier confidence had disappeared, replaced by a distracted manner that had him checking his phone and scanning the room rather than focusing on his bride. Chloe, meanwhile, was working overtime to appear perfectly happy, her smile becoming more fixed with each passing hour. I need to use the restroom, I told Noah during a brief quiet moment in the music. I'll be right back. The ladies' room was wonderfully empty when I entered, giving me a moment of quiet to process the evening's events. I was touching up my lipstick when the door burst open and Chloe stormed in, her wedding gown gathered in her fists to allow faster movement. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, letting the door swing shut behind her. "What was what?" I asked, deliberately calm as I put my lipstick back on. "Your boyfriend's little speech, making Daniel look like he downgraded and turning my wedding into your public comeback." I turned to face her fully. "Noah was defending me after you publicly insulted me at your own wedding party. What did you expect?" "I expected you to sit there and take it like you always do. You always have to be the perfect one, don't you? Perfect Evelyn, who everyone loves, who never makes mistakes, who makes me look bad just by existing." The raw pain in her voice caught me off guard. "Is that really how you see me?" How could I not? Dad's favorite, mom's pride, straight-A student, successful career, everything always comes so easily to you. "Easily?" I repeated, disbelieving. "Chloe, nothing in my life has come easily. I work incredibly hard for everything I have. And, in case you've forgotten, my fiancé left me for my sister 6 months ago. That wasn't exactly a high point." "You had him for 5 years," she countered. "Do you know what it was like growing up as Evelyn Miller's little sister? Always in your shadow, always the forgotten one. Oh, you're Evelyn's sister, she's so accomplished." I stared at her, truly seeing the depth of her resentment for the first time. Had this always been there, simmering beneath our relationship? "So, you took Daniel to get back at me?" I asked quietly. "Was it even about him?" Chloe's anger seemed to lessen slightly. "It wasn't like that, not at first. He talked about you all the time. Did you know that? Evelyn is so organized. Evelyn is so driven. I was sick of hearing it. Then one night, he actually listened to me instead. Really saw me." She looked down at her fancy gown, fingers twisting the delicate lace. "I did fall in love with him, but yes, part of me was thrilled to finally have something you wanted, to be chosen over you for once." The honesty of her admission hung in the air between us. Painful, but strangely relieving. This wasn't about Daniel. Not really. It was about years of feeling unequal, a competition I hadn't even known we were having. "I never saw you as less than you, Chloe," I said finally. "Different, yes, but never less. It doesn't matter how you saw me. It matters how I felt." Her eyes filled with tears, mascara threatening to run. "Now I've ruined everything, my own wedding day, and I'm crying in the bathroom because I'm still jealous of my sister and her perfect new boyfriend." Against my better judgment, I found myself reaching for a tissue and handing it to her. "Your makeup will run." She took it with a watery laugh. "Still looking out for me even now." "Old habits," I said with a small shrug. We stood there in silence for a moment. Years of sisterhood and rivalry suspended between us. This wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something like understanding. "I should get back," Chloe said finally. "They'll be looking for me." "Chloe," I called as she reached the door, "I hope you and Daniel will be happy. I mean that." She paused, her back to me. "Your architect really loves you, you know. I can tell by the way he looks at you." She glanced over her shoulder. "Daniel never looked at me that way." With that parting shot, equal parts admission and jab, she was gone, leaving me alone with thoughts I hadn't allowed myself to consider until now. Had Daniel ever looked at me that way? And more importantly, did I want Noah to keep looking at me that way? When I returned to the reception, Noah was deep in conversation with my father, both men laughing easily. The sight warmed something in me, a feeling of rightness I hadn't expected. "Everything okay?" Noah asked as I slipped back into my seat beside him. "Actually, yes," I said, realizing it was true. I think Chloe and I just had our first honest conversation in years. Before I could say more, Daniel appeared at our table, his expression uncertain. Evelyn, could I have a word? Noah raised an eyebrow in question, but I nodded reassuringly. It's fine, I'll be right back. Daniel led me to a quiet corner of the terrace. The music from the reception was a distant sound, a background to the awkward silence between us. Your boyfriend seems like a good guy, he said finally. He is. You deserve that. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Look, Evelyn, I know I hurt you badly. What Chloe said in there, that's not how I see things. You were never someone I settled for. Then why did you leave? The question had burned in me for months, and suddenly I needed to know. He looked out at the dark gardens, gathering his thoughts. With you, everything was planned, structured, our whole future mapped out. With Chloe, it was exciting, unpredictable. I thought that's what I wanted. And now? His hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I made vows today. I'll honor them. I felt a surprising surge of pity for him. I hope you find happiness, Daniel. I really do. You too, Evelyn. He started to reach for my hand, then thought better of it. For what it's worth, I am sorry for everything. As he walked away, I realized I felt nothing but relief. No lingering love, no desire to get back together. Not even much anger anymore, just a clear certainty that this chapter of my life was finally closing. Noah and I left the reception shortly after, choosing not to stay for the bouquet toss and grand exit. As we walked away from the ballroom, his hand warm in mine, the wedding music faded behind us. That was quite an exit we made, I said as we waited for the valet to bring his car around. Everyone will be talking about it tomorrow. Let them talk, Noah replied, pulling me closer as the cool evening air swirled around us. All that matters is what you think. I think, I said slowly, looking up at him, that this fake date turned into something very real. It was never fake for me, he admitted, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. From the moment you spilled champagne on my favorite suit, I was a goner. As we drove away from the resort, windows down and the warm spring air messing up our carefully styled hair, I found myself laughing with genuine joy for the first time in months. The wedding that I dreaded had somehow become the beginning of something new and unexpected. My sister's betrayal had led me here, to this moment with this man who looked at me like I was something precious. Life had a strange way of working out after all. 1 month after the wedding, Noah and I were having dinner at his loft in downtown Seattle when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Chloe and Daniel are back from their honeymoon, I told him, reading the message. Apparently there was some drama. Mom says they argued the entire time in Bora Bora and came back early. Noah passed me a glass of wine. Are you surprised? Not really, I admitted. Their relationship started with deceit. That's a shaky foundation. Over the past month, I'd received regular updates from my mother about the newlyweds' problems. According to family gossip, Chloe had caught Daniel texting his ex-girlfriend during the reception, leading to their first married fight before they even left for their honeymoon. Do you want to talk about it? Noah asked, always sensitive to when family news might be upsetting. Actually, no, I realized. Their problems aren't mine anymore. And they weren't. In the weeks since the wedding, I'd made a clear decision to step back from the family drama. I still spoke to my parents regularly, but I said no to invitations to events where Chloe and Daniel would be present, explaining that while I wished them well, I needed time and space. Dr. Carter had called this setting healthy boundaries. It's not about punishing them, she'd explained during our session the week after the wedding. It's about protecting your own well-being while you continue to heal. My relationship with Noah had grown quickly in that month. We spent most evenings together, alternating between his loft and my apartment. He had introduced me to his close friends and taken me to his favorite hidden spots around Seattle. I'd learned that he sang off-key in the shower, preferred sci-fi novels to historical fiction, and could make incredible omelets, but somehow burned toast every single time. Small details that were building something real between us, something honest and strong that had nothing to do with revenge or appearances. I have something for you, Noah said now, pulling a small wrapped package from his pocket. What's this for? It's not my birthday. Open it and see. Inside was a key attached to a small silver keychain in the shape of an architect's compass. A key to my place, he explained. No pressure to use it, but I wanted you to know you're welcome anytime. The gesture touched me deeply. Unlike the fast pace of my relationship with Daniel, which had been driven by what society expected and deadlines, Noah and I were building something at our own speed, with thought and care. 2 months later, I finally agreed to attend a family dinner that included Chloe and Daniel. Noah offered to come with me, but I decided to go alone. This was something I needed to handle myself. Are you sure? My father asked when I arrived at my parents' house alone. We would have understood if you brought him. I'm sure, I said, squeezing his hand. Noah and I are solid. This isn't about him. It's about me being able to be in the same room as them without support. My relationship with my father had grown stronger through all of this. Our weekly lunch dates had become a regular part of my schedule. Precious time when we could talk openly about everything, from business to philosophy to family dynamics. I'm proud of you, Pumpkin, he said, using the childhood nickname that had once embarrassed me but now felt like a treasured connection to simpler times. The dinner itself was awkward but polite. Chloe and Daniel arrived late, tension clear in their body language. They were trying to appear united, but the strain showed in small ways. Interrupted sentences, quick glances, careful distance between them at the table. I found myself watching them with distant curiosity rather than pain. Whatever happened in their marriage was their journey now, not mine. After dinner, Chloe cornered me in the kitchen as I was helping our mother with dessert. Your boyfriends didn't come, she observed, leaning against the counter while I arranged cookies on a serving plate. His name is Noah, and no, he didn't. She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd apparently developed. Things going well with him? Very well, I said, deciding to offer a peace offering. How was Bora Bora? Beautiful, expensive, hot. She picked up a cookie, then set it back down without eating it. Daniel got food poisoning the second day, spent 3 days in the bathroom. I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped. That's unfortunate. It pretty much set the tone for the trip. She hesitated, then added, "Marriage is harder than I expected." The admission surprised me. Chloe rarely admitted struggles or mistakes. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, she was still my sister. Are you sorry? I mean, her eyes met mine, searching. After what we did to you, I wouldn't blame you if you were happy we're struggling. I'm not happy about it, I said carefully. What you did hurt me deeply, and I'm still working through that. But I don't want either of you to be miserable. She nodded slowly. That's very mature of you. I'm working on it, I replied with a small smile. Setting boundaries while maintaining connections, my therapist calls it. Maybe I should see a therapist, she muttered, almost to herself. It helps, I offered. I could give you Dr. Carter's number if you want. Chloe looked startled, then thoughtful. Maybe, I'll think about it. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a beginning, a small step toward a new kind of relationship, one based on honesty rather than competition. 3 months later, at my parents' anniversary party, Noah surprised me by getting down on one knee in their backyard, surrounded by twinkling lights and the people who had known me longest. Evelyn Miller, he said, looking up at me with those warm eyes that had first captured my attention. I know we haven't been together long by usual standards, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life than I am about us. The ring he offered was nothing like the one Daniel had given me. Where that had been a traditional diamond, this was unique, a sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds in an old-fashioned setting. I'm not asking you to rush into anything, Noah continued. We can have the longest engagement in history if that's what you want. I just want the world to know that I choose you today and every day forward. Will you marry me? The moment was perfect in its honesty. No grand gestures designed for social media, no fancy setup, just a man I had come to love deeply, offering a future together. Yes, I said without hesitation, but I do want a long engagement. How long? As he slipped the ring onto my finger. Long enough to be sure, I said. Long enough to build something real. We've already started, he replied, rising to kiss me as my family applauded around us. Later that evening, as we drove home, I thought about the unlikely path that had brought us here. 6 months ago, I had been devastated by betrayal, convinced my life was falling apart. Now I was heading toward a future brighter than the one I'd lost. Penny for your thoughts? Noah asked, reaching for my hand across the console. I was just thinking about how sometimes the worst things lead to the best things, I said, watching the city lights blur past. If Chloe hadn't sent that wedding invitation, I'd like to think we would have found each other anyway, Noah said, maybe at another charity event or through mutual friends. You think so? I know so. He squeezed my hand. Some people are meant to find each other regardless of the path. As we planned our future together over the coming months, I came to believe he was right. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of something real and strong. I had learned to value myself, set healthy limits, and open my heart to true love. My sister had taken my fiancé and sent me a wedding invitation, thinking it would be the final win in our lifelong competition. Instead, it had become the first page of the best chapter of my life. A chapter written not out of anger, competition, or revenge, but in self-discovery, growth, and love. Sometimes, it turns out the most unexpected invitations lead to the most beautiful destinations. So, if you've ever faced betrayal or a broken heart and wondered if happiness is still possible, let me assure you, it is. Sometimes even greater happiness than you had before. Have you ever had something painful turn into an unexpected blessing? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories, and share with someone who might need this message today. Remember, sometimes what feels like an ending is actually just the beginning of something better. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me, and I wish you all the courage to turn your own painful chapters into beautiful new beginnings.